Hello friends, welcome to our class. Now we are going to start class 34. MJ 11 points of demands. 1930. Decrease the military expenditure and salary. Prohibition of the liquors. Release the prisoners. CDI under the popular minister example transfer subject. 3 middle class issue. Make the change rates and the tariffs favorable to the Indian businesses and the promote the Indian shippings plus decreases taxes. Three present issues is equal to 50% of decrease in LR, make LR transfer subject plus the abolition of salt tax and the government salt monopoly. LR means the land revenue. CDM 1930 to 34. Civil disobedient movement. Reason. First, a political development cover above the Simon Commission 1927, non-acceptance of the Nehru reports 1938, and a rejection of the Delhi Manifesto 1929, and rejection of the MG 11 points demands. Second, the economic grievances created by the Great Depression CD 1929, example crash in the price of the cash crops plus decline in the price of the wheat and rice, and therefore the farm the income decreases but the LR same, and the money lenders stop lending and the demands the uh, repayment of the past loan. And three, the workers were also impacted due to the low wages and the rising unemployment. Therefore, the masses were the restless and the contributed to the launching the CDMs. Salt have the potential to the until the in India. Therefore, the MG made the primary focus. Also, ML 1906 could ML means Muslim League could not be argued the demands related to the salts are the benefited by the INC politically or the Hindu demands. Plan. The CDM is the planned in the two stages. In the first stage, the march by the leaders of the coastal area for the illegal manufactures of salts. Example, a CD against the salt law plus the boycott of the British institution and goods. The second stage to include no revenue campaign in the Retwari and Mahalwari areas and no Chaukudari tax campaign in the Jamindari areas. The violation of the forest law and to be done in the central provinces. The implementation Dandi March in 1930 from the Sabarmati Ashram 1917 to the Dandi coast for the breaking of the salt law by the MG and the similar marches by the regional leaders in the other coastal areas. Example, K. Kelappan in the Malabar and C.G. Rajgopalachari Madras, and also boycott began. The Dharma Dharsana Satyagraha, May 1930, Gujarat. MG gave the prior warning to the British about the peaceful raid in the Dharsana salt workers, which lead to the MG arrested, and now the raid was led by the MGs and son Manilal and the Sarojini Naidu. This was followed by the hung repression by the British. And in Assam, the protest against the Cunningham Circular 1930 to 31, the forced the planters to give the insurance to the goods behavior of their children. After the arrest of the MG May 1930, the second stage began. The impact, the positives, the initial violence did not influence MG into the withdrawing from the movement. Therefore, MG sought the more radicalism. The CD happened at the all India level, not just the cooperation, and this was the important progress in the INM. As the masses were the ready for the British repression and the imprisonment. The first time the massive participation of the capitalistic class, especially traders who stopped the importing the British clothes. There was a decline of the 50% of the foreign clothes like the NCM 1920 to 22, but in the Swadeshi there was a real impact on the reducing the British imports and attitude of capitalistic is equal to support movement of the extract positives from the British government and then the desired trust. The CD 1929 contributed to the decreasing the imports, but and the imports role is still the played and the boycotts by the Indian traders. The first time the large scale women participation in the both rural and the urban area, the people were the shocked by the hug huge gathering of the women. Therefore, the MG morality and focus on the spirituality decrease in the inhabitation of Indian man. Plus, MG focused on the women's empowerment. Example in constructive work brought the women into the mainstream politics. The rural and the urban masses both the participated. Negatives. The no major workers participation except in the Solapur and Nagpur except in the Solapur and Nagpur. Therefore, the CPI boycotted CDM and had an impact. MG also was not much in the favor of the involving workers due to the fear of the movement turning violent as workers were under the communist influence, the lack of the Hindus-Muslim unity because of the lack of the alliance between the Congress. ML contributed to the low Muslim participation. The middle class can be divided into the three parts: the businessmen's youth and the professionals. Middle class youth was not attracted no violent methods as were the inspired by the revolutionaries like the Bhagat Singh. 1930 to 31 CDM and MG Irwin Pact 1931 Second Round Table Conference 1931 and 1932 to 34 CDMs. The government repression led to the decline of the movement after the September 1930 plus the financial losses decreased the capitalistic participation plus confiscation of the monetary decreased the peasants. The participation plus the GD 1929 had led to the decline of the prices and now tent began in no rent campaign and on the other which could have the hurt the unity among the Indians and this is made the MG auction. Therefore, the CDM was the suspended with the Gandhi Irwin Pact 2631. 26 matlab 1926 to 1931 is the time period of Irwin. And the main reason for the succession and was the rising violence. Example can also added the negatives of violent strikes and in the Solapur after the MG arrested in May 1930 by the workers and material law had the apply B. The Chittagaon Armory read by the Sudesan in the East Bengal and the NWFP violence after the arrest of the Khan Abdul Ghaffar Khan / Volunteer Gandhi in the Peshawar by his followers Red Shirts Khudai Khidmatgar who earlier protested against the harsh tax collection methods of the officials. Gandhi Irwin Pact. The CDM suspended the INC to the participate in second round table conference 1931. The right to the make salt only for the personal consumption. The right to the picketing of the liquor shops. The withdrawal of the emergency or the ordinances. Release of the political prisoner not the charged with the violence. The cancelled the files and the return the properties the confiscated to the peasants. But the British refused the commutation of the death of the sentence on the Bhagat Singh, the hanged on the 23rd March 1931, the Karachi session. The special Karachi session 1931 here the INC approved Gandhi Irwin Pact plus the passed the resolution on the fundamental rights plus a resolution of the national economic programs. The declare of INC intent of the future constitution plus NEP and the intent of the how future economic progress should be the based on the socialistic ideology. The second roundtable conference, September to December 1931, the failed because the deadlock over the Minorities Pact, as all minorities demanded separate electorates, including Dalit, led by the Ambedkar, while the INC opposed it. There no separate electorates in the future constitution set by the Nehru Report 1928. Plus, British rejected the demand of the Purna Swaraj and 1929 goal of the INC. This led to the separation of the CDMs. Second phase 1932 to 34. The Communal Award 1932 to 32 slash McDonald's Award. The brought to the British a consensus could not be reached by the Indian leaders on joining the electorates. It gave the separate electorates to the depressed class from the Government of India Act 1935. INC either accepted nor rejected, as was the being of the demanded by the depressed classes themselves in the not imposed by the British. Pune Pact, September 1932. The MG was against the communal award as would be divide Hindus and permanently and the make the untouchability permanent, but was the not against the great restriction on the decrease of the depressed classes with the joint electorates. MG started fast unto death. Therefore, the convinced the B.R. Ambedkar to sign the pact. With the MG Pact rejected the Communal Award 1932, and the reservation for the depressed class was the nearly double slash increase from 71 to 147 seats in the PLA. Parliamentary Legislative Assembly and 18% of reservation in the Council Legislative Assembly. CDM second phase. And now the MG launched the campaign against the untouchability by the setting of the Harijan Sevak Sangh plus the Harijan 1933 plus the Harijan Sevak Fund for the campaign plus the 2000 kilometer march and too fast to increase the awarenesses. A result of the second phase. A low response for CDM due to the demoralization due to the suspension of the first phase. At the rate untouchability, neither upper caste nor lower caste the enthusiastic about the Harijan campaign. A lower caste were the becoming more radicals and the less interested in the social recognition, wanted the political and economic empowerment and the not join the social dignity. The government repression did not the rest, therefore the CDMs ended in 1934. The second phase was a failure, but the INC benefited overall from the CDM in the 1937 election under Government of India Act 1935. Government of India Act 1935. The reason is called to Simon Commission plus Nehru Report plus 3 round table conference, first 1930, second 1931, third 1932, plus the IRA lead to the CA Red plus the revolutionary sacrifices, Bhagat Singh plus the CDMs 1930 to 34. Background 1. Simon 1937 reports. June 1930 replaced the diarchy with the full responsible government act in the diarchy minister of the transferred subject only responsible to the PLA principle Parliamentary Legislative Assembly, therefore the partially responsibility with the some emergency power switch the governor and did not want to the any changes etc. plus the separate Burma from India to create the NWFP and the Sindh was new provinces. Second, the first round table conference 1930. 565 princely state and non-INC parties participated and later the demanded a union having a British India and 565 princely state. Third, the second round table conference 1931, Indian demanded for the federation and the resolution government rejected. 4. Third round table conference 1932. unimportant as a very low participation. 5. The Simon Commission 1937 had a no Indians plus first and third roundtable conference, no INC participation plus the second roundtable conference failed. Therefore, the Government of India Act 1953 not to be the product of the Indian participation and the self-government, therefore the opposed by the Indians. Features the at center the federal structure for the whole of India. Example, first time India is to be the union of the British India and the 565 the federalism. Nehru Report 1928 and the earlier act were the for the British India, but this the ended and the singing of the instruments of the accession and the section 6 1935 to the Union India, but list the 15% of the princes which was the never done. Therefore, the central level provinces never come into force and the Government of India Act 1931. 1919 the operated act the center for the British India. 565 princely estate did not agreed as because for A. The paramountcy was not abolished by the Government of India Act 1935. Government of India Act 1858 set up the paramountcy relationship between the crown and the princely estates. Therefore, they did not want to another authority over them in the form of the union government. B. Did not want to surrender financial autonomy to the union government and the subject to the like the communication and defense where the surrender. Hence, it means the loss of the autonomy. Example, union could ask the 565 princely estate money contribution for the Indian army. See, the similar princely estate was unhappy with the low representation at the center. Example, 20 smaller estates were the not given as a single seats. D. The fear of the democracy of the becoming pact of the unions as the INC can launch the movements even in the 565 princely estate. PS is equal to foreigner country. The bicameral legislature at the center. The Federal Assembly plus the COS at the Council of States. The one third of the members are to be the nominees of the princes in the federal assemblies. This eliminated chances of the INC majority at the center. 66% is equal to INC plus the ML. Therefore, the thought to be get 15.1%. Life of the CEOs is the permanent with one third of the member retiring after every second year. Life of the 5 years for the Federal Assembly FA. The direct election to the COS but the indirect election of the FA. Right to vote to the more Indians, but only the 10% have got this due to the income criteria. This intent is called to the prevent voting rights to the INC supported base to workers and the peasants. Separate electorates continued. The reservation for the SCs, the use for first time before there were referred to the depressed class in the all legislature and also for the women and labor working class leaders. The first time federal a distribution of subject into the federal, provincial and the concurrent list. Originally, ownership of provincial subject did not get the power to so the make the laws on this subject as a grant by the centers. 80% of the budget is still not votable, plus no viceroy and the restored cuts and the grants, plus the residuary power of the viceroy, plus veto power, ordinance power to the certified even if the rejected the bill, diarchy at the center. The reserved subject under the total control of the viceroy, example defense, internal security, foreign affairs and the tribal area, church, etc. Transferred subject laws by the central legislature plus under the ministers responsible to the legislature. The viceroy to the function on the aid and advice of the executive council. Transferred subject the fiscal autonomy to the government of India, transferred to the financial control to the British India from SOS for the India to the Viceroy. Therefore, the reduce the power of the SOS and increase the power of the Viceroy and Nehru. Said to be this were the only the major changes by the Government of India 1935. Government of India Act 1858 as SOS is called to Directorate of the State plus the Morley budget speech in 1906. क्लास 35 रिवीजन ऑफ द प्रीवियस क्लास हो चुका है, कर लिया आप रिवीजन। आप कर सकते हैं गवर्नमेंट ऑफ इंडिया एक्ट 1935 प्रोविंशियल ऑटोनॉमी as now the federal distribution of the subject and the diarchy ended, all subjects are equal to the transfer. Therefore, the very most powerful governor, who is the agent of the centers, and therefore the provinces are the more independent from the center. Budget of the provinces separate in the Government of India Act 1919. The economic autonomy. Therefore, the Government of India 1919 plus 1935 lead to the provincial autonomy conceptually, but in the exam and in answer in 1935. Fully responsible government in the provinces since all subjects were the transferred. The premier headed and the councils of ministers in the provinces and there were the responsible to the PLA. The direct election with the separate electorates. How 40% of budget is still not votable. Governors still have two powerful head dictionary power to the summon to the legislature, the plus the ordinances power plus veto power over the bill, the plus the administration of the tribal regime. Link the fifth schedules example A 244A and see the power of the governor. Plus the special power to the protect and the right to the minorities, British businesses interest and the privileges of the civil servant, and the power to the make over the government to the run the identifically. The independent point for the now on the provincial autonomy points done. The no mention of the dominion status. The goal was to be have a strong control over the center and get INs busy to provinces busy running of the government. The center formation by the regional leaders will make them the autonomous power centers and the independent of central INC leadership. And therefore the weak INC at the all India level. Example, the divide and rule tactics. INC opposed the representation of the 565 princely estate by the nominees of the princes, demanded election of the 565 PS and the central legislature. ML had the fear of the Hindu majority at the center and more Hindu majority provinces and the indirect election at the Federal Assembly. INC rejected Government of India Act 1935 and demanded as a continuation assembly and the elected were elected by the UAF. The Congress Ministry's 28-month rule and the INC formed a government in the many provinces after the 1937 election under the Government of India Act 1935. The goal of the INC to the fighting the election was to be the prevent other the political power for the coming to the power. Link the logic by the pro changer for the 1923 election to the council CWF. The plus will be added to the promote constructive work better. The INC got the majority in all provinces except the Bengal, Punjab, Sindh, NWF and Assam. It was the largest party in Bengal, Assam and NWFP formed the coalition the government in the NWF and Assam. The Congress ministries boosted the morale of the peasant and the workers of the strengthened the movements. However, the some rights of the rights wing INC leaders like the K.M. Munshi used the CDM, the SP, the left the wing, the leaders of the NCM, which the created tension. INC against the importance experiences that come to the handy later the post 1947, the World War II and INM and 1939 to 45. The work of flow chart at home. The August of 1940. Background slash context. 1939, the INC demands the return for the supporting Britain in the World War II, that supporting the British war efforts. The immediately responsible government at the center. All subject is equal to transferred. The Constituent Assembly post-war. The declared war aims as at the rate Indian future. Example, INC wanted to official commitment to the independence post-war. MG wanted to unconditional support to the Britons as the justice was on the Allied side by the aligned as a Axis power is equal to Second World War II, as they were evicted by the aggression. Plus, the MG did not wanted to benefited from the weakness of the British. Netaji Bose wanted to make advantage of the war by starting NWCDM. The Nehru stance is called to not supported until the actual independence. No advantage to be taken of war. Therefore, the NINC demanded was not equal to the Bose, Nehru and MG. The majority of the INC leaders favored Allied victory as the Axis power, where the victors dictators and the oppressors. Also, Indian become a colony of the Japan. Then all the progress of the INM will be lost at it was a dictatorship. However, Britain drained India did not the without the constant of the Indians. Therefore we should not actively supported the British. Therefore, the INC position was either supported not until demand were not met, and to take over the government and the run it the identically indefinitely. The independent point from the now on the provincial autonomy points done. The no mention of the dominion status. The goal was to have a strong control over the center and get the INC buys of provinces buys the running the governments. The government of the formation by the regional leaders will we make them the autonomous power center and the independent central INC leadership. And therefore the weakened INC at all India level, the example of the divides and the rule tactics. The INC opposed the representation of the 565 princely estates by the nominees of the princes that demanded the election in the 565 princely estate for the central legislature. The ML had the fear of the Hindu majority at the center as a more Hindu majority provinces and indirect election to the Federal Assembly. The INC rejected Government of India Act 1935 and demanded the Constituent Assembly elected by the UAF Universal Adult Franchise. The Congress ministers 28-month rules. The INC formed the government in the many provinces after the 1937 election under the Government of India Act. The goal of the INC fighting election was to prevent other the political power from coming to the power. The link logic by the pro changers for the 1923 election to the CLA plus will be able to promote the constructive work better. The INC got a majority in the all provinces except Bengal, Punjab, Sindh, NWF and Assam. And it was the largest party in Bengal, Assam and MWF formed the coalition of government in the NWF and Assam. The Congress ministers boosted the morals of the peasants, the worker, and strengthened their movement. However, some right-wing INC leader like the KM Munshi used the CID to spoil the left-wing leaders of the INC, which created the tension. The INC gained import exercises that come to the hand later the post 1957 World War II and the INM 19 Indian National Movement Indian National Movement 1939 to 45. The make the flow chart of at home. The August of 1940. Background the contest. The 1939 Indian National Congress demands in the return for the supporting British in the World War II, and that is the supporting British war in the efforts. The immediately responsible government at the center is equal to all subject is equal to transferred. The Constituent Assembly post-war. The declare war aims Indian futures. The INM wanted to official no, committed to the independence post-war. The MG wanted the unconditional support to the British as the justice was the Allied side. Versus Axis power is called to W World War II as the were the victims of the aggression. Plus, MG did not want to the benefit from the weakness of the British. The Netaji boss wanted to take advantage of the war by the starting the CDM. Nehru stands is called to no support until actual independence and no advantage to the taken of the war. Therefore, the INC demands was not equal to the Bose, Nehru, and Mahatma Gandhi. The majority of the INC leaders favored the Allied victory of the Axis power, where the dictators and the aggressors. The also if the Indian become the colony of the Punjab and all progress of the INM will be the lost to the was a dictatorship. However, the British dressed India into war without any consent of the Indians. Therefore, the should not actively support by the British. Therefore, the INC position was the neither support nor Septos until the demands were met. The Ling Lithgo 3643 rejected the INC demands and started that will set up the advisory committee of the politician and representatives of the Indian princes to advise the British and the war effect. 1939 CWC What One meets the INC decided to the withdrawal from the PLAs and the resign from the Congress ministers. The Lin Lithgow 3643 picked the declared the Dominion status after war. The ML 1906 was the opportunity for their past the Lahore session in 1940 Pakistan resolution. The provision of the August of 1940 by the Lin Lithgow 3643. At the rate transfer of powers, TOP will be expanded Viceroy Executive Council to have more Indians. They will set up the Advisory War Council. The at the rates Constitution Assembly slash right to the frame the constitution. I will set up the constitution assembly after the war. This mainly the Indians will frame the constitution of India with the dominion status, not solely Indians of the Cripps Mission 1942. Therefore, the first time the British recognized the right to Indians that draft the constitution. Simon Commission 1927 and no Indians plus RTC not equal to the Constitution Assembly. The first time the British promised the Dominion status explicitly with a clear timeline 1929 Irwin Statements Dominions of the Future. At the rate participation, August of 1940 started no future constitution without consent of the ministers and therefore gave the veto power to the MLA regarding the framing the constitution. The result is equal to rejected by the INC of the Vardhan session 1940 as the accepting August of 1940 is the equal to the accepting the partition of India plus the August of 1940 did not the promise plus the Swaraj. ML rejected as no mention of the two Constituent Assembly and no mention of the Pakistan explicitly. The individual Satyagraha 1940. Under the pressure to launch CDM, the MG launched the instant of the individual Satyagraha with the goal of the freedom of the speech. The Vinoba Bhave, JL Nehru and the Bar- Brahmadatta become the first three Satyagraha. Satyagrahis now the launch the Delhi Chalo movement and Jail Bharo movement. The made a demand for the freedom of speech, got arrested, and if not taken kept the marching to the Delhi until the arrested. 1941 Viceroy Executive Council expanded from the 6 by 8 Indians to 8 by 12 Indians, but without the defense and home and affair ministers of India. Cripps Mission 1942 background. And in June 1941, Germany attacked the USSR plus December 1941, Punjab attacked the USA. Therefore, the fear of the Japanese invasion in the Indian increased. Therefore, the members 1941 INC overrides thus objection of the Nehru and MG the offered the cooperation of the British if A. The Purna Swaraj was post World War II. B. The immediate transfer of power. Now the Japan occupied Burma and pressure to the USA on the British lead to the sending Cripps mission in 1942 to India. Provision at the rate around R2COI is equal to Constitution Assembly post-war, having the solely Indians and Dominion status post-war. Constituent Assembly has members the nominated by the princes plus elected members from the PLS and after the election in the provision under the Government of India Act 1935. Foreign policy to be with the Indians. The option to the provision of the British India and each 565 princely state do not join the union frame there the constitution or set up there the union if any provision or the princely state not in the agreement with the constitution framed by the constitution assembly, therefore the legally 11 points plus 565 dominion domination are the possible the at the rate transfer of power during the war and the defense to the continue under the viceroy and no devolution of the power of the viceroy. The Cripps mission failed, but the MG called the post dated check. The INC wanted to Purna Swaraj after the war and wanted to 565 princely estate to be represented by the elected members and the no right to the secede from the any provision of the PS. ML opposed because wanted a second constitution assembly and Pakistan. INC wanted immediate transfer of power to Viceroy as the constitution head. And talk broke down the point. The veto power of the viceroy. The negatives is equal to at the rate partition. INC agreed and to the autonomy of the Muslim majority provinces. The Quit India Movement 1942 reason. Failure of the Cripps Mission 1942, fear of the Japanese invasion, and British did not do the enough to the protect the people of the colonies and the Southeast Asia when Japan invaded. Therefore, the MG wanted Indians to the high on the spirit of the nationalism. If the Japanese invaded India and the British escaped, also anger was rising due to the war inflation events. Quit India movement resolution passed by the INC and a special session in Bombay on the 8 August 1942. MG speech at the Goalia tanks on the 8 August 1942. Therefore, the people known only this part of the Quit India movement resolution, and there was the revealed the MG's speech as on 9 August 1942. The INC leadership was the arrested. Therefore, the Quit India movement resolution could not be the made the public. The Quit India movement 1942 therefore was led by the local INC leaders and the people themselves. The MG speech asked the government, the servants, and the soldiers to not the resign, but they declare the loyalty to the INCs and the people of the India, and asked the princess to accept democracy and not support the British. They asked the people of the 565 princely estate to support the princess only if he anti-British, and they also declared they are the part of the India. Ask the student and leave there the studies. Quit India movement resolution not known to the public. Ask the peasant to not pay LRs plus other tenants and to pay only the fair rent, and the only if the jamindar is the anti-British is of no rent campaign first time. Plus started that the INC believes that the land belong to the actual cultivators. Do or Die slogan by the MG. Quit India movement's leaderless due to the arrest, but not leaderless as since 1920s MG had worked at the lot to the strengthen the INC at the goal level. Plus the due to the INM and the CW the masses were the trained the mass movement. The Quit India movement took place in the two phases. The first phase was equal to mass struggle of the 6 weeks. Second phase is equal to ungrounded activities participation. The people faced the harassed repression due to date of the INM and in Quit India movement. Rural and the urban India both participated. Maximum participation was of the peasant with the total focus on the British and zero violence against the zamindars. Big zamindars stayed the neutral and the small zamindars participated actively. The CPI did not support the Quit India movement since the USSR was now part of the allied power, but still may strike by the workers, and 150 communities participated. The school colleges girl played the important role by the acting of the countries, and during the second phases the Aruna Ashraf Ali and Sucheta Kriplani were the active organizer. The Usha Mehta started the Congress radio for the coordination in the second phase. The student lead the position in the first phase, and the carries in the second phase. The municipal participation was now the because the ML did not support the Quit India movement, it will establish Hindu rule, but the even ML supports gave the food and the shelter did not act as the informers of the second phase. The total absence of the communal violence. The CSP 1934 leaders provided leadership is the second phase. Example, JP Narayan, Acute, Patawad, Patawardhan, etc. Class 36. The second phase of actively, the government official leaked the information about the raids. The businessman donated the generously. Example, the Sumita Morazai gave the different cars each days to the acute Patawardhans. The pilot and the trained the drivers delivered bomb on the arms. The British wanted to MG and the condemned the violence. Listed the MG started fast unto death 1943 against the British violence, and now a new energy to the masses led by the fresh mass of yours. B. The Indian ministers in the Viceroy Executive Council resigned, did not want to blame for the MG's death. C. The international media criticized the British repression in Quit India movement. D. Even those against the Quit India movement demanded MG release. Therefore, the fast in increase until the parallel government was to set up the different parts as the British rules and the overthrown in the these part, for example, in Balia's East UP by the Chittu Pandey. In the Midnapur, East Bengal called the Jati Sankar Plus and the Satyan Party Sankar under the Nana Patil, who was given the guidance by the YB Chanwan and the Achyut Patwardhan, most successful parallel government. This parallel government collected there the taxes, set up the own courts, and set up the libraries and the protected education and worker against the untouchability and prohibition. The setup there the police and did not believe work by the giving the food and shelters. With the end of the World War II and all India leaders were the released by the June 1945 the participation in the Simla conference, and this the marked the end of Quit India movement 1942 to 45. Also the Churchill wanted to solution for India before the election of the British for more votes. The Bengal famine 1943, 4 to 5 billion Indians were killed. There was no actual food shortage, therefore it was the man-made the famines as the food supplies were the diverted from the British war and the afford the Europeans, and the plus poor management of the logistics and the supplies by the government, and the plus the rice could not be the imported from the Burma since it was under the Japan. The Lin Lithigo 3643 the suggested that the Churchill to stop export of the rice from the Bengal, and the Churchill refused. Impact. This leads to the huge disturb of the British among the Indians, and Churchill was criticized by the Hitler like the India British. Many the British now in the positively through about the independence from India link anti-government opinion in USS as the Vietnam War 1961 to 75. This is the because of Europeans beliefs in the prioritize above Indians' lives. The Rajaji Formula 1944, given by the C. Rajagopalachari and the basis for the negotiation between MG and Jinnah. The goal by the 1944 clear this the Axis will be lost the war. Therefore, the hope of the transfer of power post-war. They ensure the terrestrial integrity of the India by having the unity between the INM and MLA, and link the Lucknow Pact 1916. The proposal. The ML should be supported Purna Swaraj, INC and ML should from a coalition government at the center because of the British were open to the transfer of power even in the 1942 Cripps mission. The plebiscite post-war in the Muslim majority region on the question of the partition. If the votes is the favor of the partition, then the weak common center and strong provinces result. The Gandhi's Jinnah stock fell as Jinnah wanted. A. Voting passed on the separate electorates and are only the Muslim votes on the question of the partition. B. The not weak and common center but the independent Pakistan. C. Implement the above before the British leave. The Desai Liaquat Pact 1945. Bhula Bhai Desai was the leader of the INC and CLA, and the Liaquat Ali of the ML in the CLA. The goal have the INC ML unity give above the mentioned the joint demand to the British. The Jinnah refused the Lucknow of the pact and therefore the failed. Vellore Plan 1945 was a product of Simla Conference in June 1945 after the end of the Second World War and the release of the INC leaders and the Indian Quit India movement. Based on the Desai-Liaquat Pact of the 1945, the Vellore asked the uh, parties to either give a joint list and the minister or each party may give a separate list. The plan failed because of the ML wanted the Muslim ministers only from the ML, while the INC argued that it is not a Hindu organization. Declaration of failure by the Vellore 43-47 meet the implicit veto to the ML since the failure was the announced because of the ML could not the convinced. The prestige of the ML increased and did very well in the December 1945 elections. INA Azad Hind Fauj. The 1942 INA set up under the Captain Mohan Singh, and Mohan Singh was arrested due to the conflict with the Japanese as he wanted to leading the role for the Indians POWs against the British and is equal to the treatment like Allied army. And now the Ras Bihari Bose, who was a Japanese since 1915, took leadership the INM. In July 1943, Netaji Bose took over leadership from the RB Bose and expanded the INM by the recruiting NRIs in the Southeast Asia. He raised the funds for the among the NRIs. INA, I wanted Indians money for the INA instead of Japanese money. He raised the Rani Lakshmi Bai Regiment of the women and where were also the Gandhi and Nehru Regiment in the INM. He set up the provincial government of the Free India on 21 1st October 1943. 1943 A and Andaman and Nicobar Islands liberated by the INA renamed the Swaraj Island. Earlier the Havelock Islands, Havelock owned by the Bek Kanpur in 1857 revolted from the Indians. The INF failed and Kohima and the Imphal in 1944. 1944 plus. Clement Attlee became the PM in July 1945. The INM trial of the PWs began to the Red Fort with the trials of the Prem Segal and the Guru Baksh and Singh, Dhillon and Shahnawaz Hussain. This helped the communal unity during the INA agitation 1945 to 46. December 1945 election in India. February 1946 cabinet mission arrived in India on the same day naval mutiny. The INM trials and the INA agitation. The INA trials lead to the mass upsurge all cross Indian among all Indian section have were the supported by the all political parties. Therefore, the maximum unity throughout the INM scene during the INA agitation. The British stated that there was been a no issue the past INM which the generated much the uh, sympathy in India's. Therefore, the INA was the truly unified India. The INC made the INM agitation part of the election campaign that demanded the release of the INM man. The INC leaders did led by the Bhula Bhai Desai, fought the case for INM's man. And the INC set up the INA Relief Committee, which raised the funds and gave money to INM man of reliefs and that tried to behalf of the INM man. The first time, the some government official openly support the movement by the contributing the money. During the INA agitation. Where was the unity in the Navy as the Navy rating that the workers slash the sailors of the Navy went to the strike? February. Naval Mutiny, February 1946. Reason and the fear of the losses of job after the war ended had the supported by INA agitation by the contributing money, the poor services condition and the racial discrimination action, a revolt and the raise the three color flag and flag of the INC and the MLA on the ship. ML on the ships. Wrote quit India on the ships example Hindustan military India से तलवार HMIS went though around Bombay and the Turks with the pictures of the Netaji Bose got the support of the communist and the now the Bombay workers went to the strike were divided by the Aruna Asaf Ali who contributed their movement and space opportunity by the MG naval rating the Karachi and the Air Force men went to sympathy strike. The mutiny ended due to the lack of the support from the INC and the ML British repression by Jinnah and the Patel claimed on down the rating of the holding the meeting. The overall impact after the Quit India movement 1942 to 45 INA agitation and the naval mutiny, the British realized that the cabinet mission fails the next month will be overthrown by the violently as they are no moral head than confidence in Indian armed forces. 1945 election. The INC got the majority every except Punjab, Sindh and Bengal. The INC formed a coalition government and the government Punjab, the Akali and the Uni Unionists and the MLA did a very well in Muslim seats and got a majority in Sindh and Bengal. The Cabinet Mission 1946 and the refer to flow charts as well. The purpose the United India it is having the British India 5 and 565 princely estate. The only proposal where the Purna Swaraj was the offered of the British wanted to in United India. Italy anti-participation statement March 1946 the minorities wanted to allow the veto power majority proposals the no to constituent assembly and no veto power ML but British one not accept the constitution not based on the INC MLA compromises. The reason the British realized independence was the inevitable. Also, the weakened the two world war and the Great Depression in the this decade 1940 to 45. Therefore, wanted to friendly, strong and failure. Therefore, united India. Plus diplomatic failure of the partition. The goal of the cabinet mission 1946 was a the peaceful transfer of the power government at the center and the Indians b setting up the constituent assembly and the independence India. Cabinet plan 1946 provided the stake solution regarding the issue of the participation. The weak common center was the three subject defense, foreign affairs and communication. The provincial autonomy over all other subject the all residual power with the provinces confederation. The provision are the divided into the three sections. The section A the Hindus majority provinces, b the Muslim majority provinces of west and c the Muslim majority provinces of east. Each section would be framed the group of the constitution. That section A will be framed the group A's constitution. Section B groups B and the section C group C constitution. Union constitution on the three subject to be the framed by the constituent assembly having the nominees of the princes and the member from the PLAs. A constituent assembly is equal to group A, B, C and nominees of the 565 princely estate. After the general election provinces may be come to out of the group. The usually the general election is the after the framing of the constitution. The future changes to the group, the constitution and the union constitution only after the 10 years. The immediate transfer of the power and the interim government at the center. The full independence once the constitution was the drafted. The constitution assembly is the constituted via direct election in the British India, the plus the nominees of the provisions. The debates is at the Red Cabinet Mission Plan 1946. The MLA wanted to write to the question and the Union Constitution immediately because of COI still stay United India. The INC argued that the grouping is the not compulsory plus the elected representatives from 565 princely estate instead of the nominees. The MLA argued that the grouping is the compulsory and therefore the participation is implicit, and if this is correct the MLA accepted the CWP 1946 easily rejected it. The INC decided that the NWFP and Assam both joined Group B and C, and therefore the ML did not join Constituent Assembly, also did not join the interim government at the center formed under the Nehru. Later joined the interim government due to the fear of the power with the INC and got the finance minister, therefore did not allow the government to the function. So the ML gave a call for the direct action on the 16 August 1946 for the creation of the Pakistan, leading to the communal rights. Example, 5,000 killed in the week in the Calcutta. The Attlee Statement, February 1947. A pro-balkanization statement like the Cripps 1942. By the June 30, the 1948, British will leave the India even no constitution. That is the 1 years. Therefore, the wanted to force MLA INC to the compromise using the fear of the anarchy. The 565 princely state not to be under the any future government of India Act. The paramountcy want to be transferred up to any government of India. Participation of the British India is the started that the power will be transferred to in the interim government and the center, and to be the provincial government to provinces that have the joint the constituent assembly, that is for which the constituent assembly not representatives. The Mountbatten plan will be replaced the well 43-47. Now there was the widespread violence and the coalition government of the INC in the Punjab was the overthrown. The plan balkan by the MTB April 1947, also known as the Bikini Bird Plan. They give the independence of the each provinces plus opinion for them to join the Constituent Assembly or not. The Nehru opposition therefore was not even the discussed. The 3rd June plan slash Mountbatten plan 1947 slash participation. Mountbatten within 2 months realized that the CMP 1946 was a deadlock house due to the Jinnahs. The participation could have been avoided if the British had cracked down the communal violence, but they played a massive role in the mediator between the INC and the MLA. Mountbatten Plaza are working for a British national interest of future influence in South Asia. Therefore, better have been friendly India to Pakistan instead rising the unfriendly future of Pakistan. Mountbatten Plan proposed the dominion status of partition, political victory in the British if Empire repressed, and also the Commonwealth and the economically impact of the British and dominion status would be kept in India in Commonwealth. And the INC agreed because wanted to communal violence to end, plus since INC agreed to the partition, therefore all demand of the INC were the accepted. Example, unitary structure, informally no right to the succeed to the 565 princely estate, and Pakistan to be as small as possible. Provision in Punjab and Bengal, a simple majority of the either Hindu or Muslim MPLAs and favor of the partition. It will be led by the partition. The plebiscite in Sindh and the referendum in NWFP and the Sylhet of Assam. The voting of the political leaders and Balochistan if they vote in the favor of Pakistan, and two constituent assembly, two domination, and the transfer of power to the centers by the 15 August 1947. The two boundary commission both under the Red Cliffs for the democrating and the boundary in the west and east. The INC and MLA both accepted and voted everywhere come to the favor of the partition. Thank you very much.